So are you in England or
I'm in Croatia now
Croatia? Yeah.
for a week,
So what time is it there?
6 in the morning.
Oh, okay. So do you normally get up this
Normally,
early or you got up for this?
uh, I normally get up this early, but Wednesdays I have lessons at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't come anymore. This is my new schedule for this semester. But I'm on strike today.
Oh,
So
right.
I'm free.
Lucky us. Yes, very good. Mm. So does it feel like for you, does it feel like, um, well, the words don't work. Progress is happening. Does it feel like things are moving in a direction for you?
Oh, yes, but it's underwhelming,
Mm, mm.
as I said to you. Yes, I mean, my life's completely crazy. With all this flying, caring, being with my mom, dealing with my cousin. It's really completely crazy. But I'm living with it and I'm living well with it. It can be even physically exhausting sometimes.
So
But
would you say that you're handling it better now than you once would have?
yes, yes. Although I never had this kind of situation before.
Mm,
But the situations were easier and I was less able to handle them.
right. So how long will it have to be underwhelming for before that becomes normal?
Boring. Before it becomes normal or boring.
Yeah. Well, is there a difference?
Exactly. I don't know.
Hmm.
No idea.
So can you imagine? I mean, obviously, I'm a figment of your imagination. Can you imagine that for me, that that there, when I'm not here in these meetings, I don't even think about this stuff. Mostly, not always, but mostly.
I can imagine any kind of things, but I can imagine. But actually, for me, it's not like that. There's one little thing. There's like, yeah, I always, not always, but often, I often think, what will I have to discuss in the group? What what will I bring to the group? And this has become kind of a burden, obligation. You have to have something. You have to have some progress. So yeah, and this also was a point for me to think about what am I going to bring to the group. Oh yes, I'm going to bring to the group that I need to have something to talk about,
Hmm. Yeah, so
and
that's
it bothers me.
perfectly
So
reasonable.
so for me, so for me, uh, it does. I do think about the group, about working, about the work very, very often. It's
Hmm.
not for me, it's not like for you. If you don't think about the group when we're not here, then it's very different than for me because I do think about the group a lot.
Hmm. Hmm. I do think about the group, but I was saying I don't think about being awake.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and let me say too that coming to the group and saying I've got nothing to talk about is perfectly fine. That's as good a subject as any to bring. So what I find is that once people start talking, things that need looking at will appear. So they don't need to have it ready beforehand. I'd rather a spontaneous discovery of what's there than planning for it to be such and such. So you're not here to entertain anybody. You're not here to
Yeah.
achieve anything. You're here because it's good to be here, I hope. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course I am. Of course I am. And I know this. I know this intellectually that we just come and we just are together because there are other valuable things, very valuable things.
Hmm.
Mm. I know that intellectually, but it doesn't sit because I always think, oh, what am I going to bring?
Hmm.
Or not just what am I going to bring, but what did I do? What did I achieve? Because you always have to have some progress, you know.
Well, you can't not,
Otherwise,
but yeah, what you
yeah, yeah,
recognise as progress is another story. Yeah,
yeah,
and achievement, of course. So one of the things that I would say is that what can I bring to the group is in itself grist for the mill, something to look at,
yeah.
because in that statement there is identification with a self.
Mm,
So who needs to bring something to the group? Who is there? Who is it that is there that needs to bring something? So
mm,
learning to recognize, and this is an issue for me, well, an issue, this is a something for me, and that is that there are indications of stuff that can be looked at that still produces something unpleasantness or whatever whatever version of, let's call it suffering. We don't know really, that's a funny word anyway, but some version of suffering, now. So I was talking with Marius last night, and as we were discussing things, I had to say, yes, I still get triggered by Trump. I still get triggered by certain things. Right? So there's something to look at. And he asked me, "Are you futuring? Are you having a fantasy about the future?" And I looked at it and I went, "I am. I am. You know what? I really am." And until he said that, I didn't look at it. I didn't see it. That
yeah,
there was me saying, "What will happen if dot dot dot." Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
our words, the simplest, most obvious phrase will tell us something that is of value to
yeah.
us. Yeah. So
Who
when
is
we
there
look
to
at,
make progress?
if you say, what will I bring to the group? I have nothing to bring to the group. I should bring something to the group. It would be good if I brought some, however you want to put it, there
Mm,
is identification there. Now we don't want to stop at just an intellectual idea of this identification. What we want to do is recognize the tangible effects that we call identification, which is going to be a really subtle feeling of ownership, right? There is me that has this job to do. Whoa, so there we go. And then there's a fundamental idea that I can do something. I have control. So then there's an issue of control as well as identification, all in that three-word statement.
yeah. So let so I go back to my issue with control again. Although this is another layer now because I remember sitting on a plane on Monday and having this strike telling me I have no control. I sit here now, there's a pilot who does something he does not have control, and me, I have even less control than him. So it's another layer now, it's another round for me
Mm.
with control. But okay.
Yeah. So you can get into
Yeah.
that. You can a way into having a look at it is to go, well, for the really obvious thing, I have no control over this plane. The pilot's the one that's up there, right? Chances are, once he takes off, he's using autopilot anyway, so he's sitting back eating a sandwich. He's not actually flying it, but
Yeah.
because I have no control, I have to trust that somebody else is able to do it. Now that's
Exactly.
without getting into them having control, the thing is me not having control puts me in a position to examine my trust. And what happens when I get on a plane, because I do it regularly, I just go, oh, well, this is it. There is
Yeah.
no point
And the
in
word,
even considering whether or not he's capable or not because you're here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And the word trust came up for me then. I have no control. I only have trust now. I'm sitting here with other people. Okay, let's go.
Hmm. So when words like trust come up, that's also really interesting because trust is an absence of mistrust. There is no such thing as trust, but mistrust
Mm.
is a tangible thing that you can feel. And so
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
say there is no mistrust, that's much more accurate to say that than to say there is trust.
Mm.
And it changes the perspective. It changes the way we look at the whole thing. And is
Mm.
there any point in having mistrust about anything? Because everything is just what it is, and no matter what
What it
my
will.
attitude is, it's not going to change it, is it?
You know what? I think when I come to the group, what do I bring to the group? I only have to bring trust and relax into it.
And things happen.
Yes, but then not just the group, but everywhere.
Yes.
When I sit at the wheel, when I drive, I have to have trust in everyone on the road.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Many, many,
Yeah.
many, many, many years ago, we owned a pizza shop, and I was doing a delivery one day. And in Australia, you drive the wheel is on the right hand side of the car, and you
Mm.
drive on the left hand side of the road. And you always have to give way to your right. And I was coming over this hill, and there was a car coming out of my left. And you just trust that they're going to stop and let you go because that's the rule. That's what always happens. This time, there was two girls in the car and they were talking to each other and they didn't notice me and they just slowly came out in the road in front of me. And I'm jumped on the brakes, my wheels are skidding, and I ran into the side of the car. You know what? For 6 weeks after that, I was really scared to drive because I couldn't trust that the
Mm.
car on the left would stop and let me go through. It was amazing how that changed my whole driving
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, the trust returned. That's the only time
Mm.
in 55 years of driving that that's actually ever happened to me. But there you go. So it's amazing how we automatically assume some things and other things we're hyper vigilant about all the time.
Yeah. Although when I drive, I'm very, very careful. And I always think, okay, now I know that I have the right to pass now or something, but I just don't know if other people are interested in it.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really careful. Yeah, a bit of mistrust is there because I think it has to be when I'm driving.
Mm.
But on the other hand, I'm also trusting myself. I'm trusting that I will drive okay because I do it completely automatically. Yeah. There's trust everywhere. There
Mm,
has to be trust everywhere.
yep. If you were to worry about whether you're going to wake up sick in the morning, it changes everything today, doesn't it? If you
Yeah,
worry about whether it's whether the weather is going to be so extreme you can't go outside. You can't, there's all of these things we could worry about. Some people do,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And because of this issue with me, I'm recognizing how much of that is about the future.
How
So,
do you mean?
well, when you say trust, isn't it always about what will happen rather than what is happening?
Exactly, exactly. The outcome.
Yeah, in the
Trust
future,
that the outcome will be okay.
mm,
Yeah, in future.
in this non-existent fantasy world in our head.
Exactly. It's all about the future. It's all about the future. And when I think about what to say in the group, it's also in the future because the meeting has not taken place yet.
Mm.
Oh yes, this is very much in the future. Yeah. Which brings me at this moment brings me to this moment. When I recognize that I'm usual in the future, then it does it for this moment for me. I start looking around me, I start feeling in my body. It made me shift, it made me ground at
Mm.
once.
And it seems really crazy, but that Byron Katie question, or whoever asked that question about, is it okay to live in a body? Right? It's almost always in the now, everything is okay. Almost all,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. This is
Yeah, that's
Pernille.
something she says.
Sorry,
Yeah,
and
yeah, it's Pernille. It's Pernille who says that, but it reminds me also of Byron Katie because she
Yeah.
says something like, "You never can deal with the future because it's not here. So the future seems so scary, and you cannot deal with it, but you can always deal the present."
Mm.
mm. And when you think about it, if you really get into it a little bit, you think, let's say you're in pain. Let's say you've got a headache. Right? It's like, okay, here we are in the now, feeling this pain, but a lot of that pain is about, will it ever stop? And again, we're back
Hmm.
into the future.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the pure fear or that it will get worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's so compelling. The future is so compelling because I think now, oh, I hope so much for me. It's not a strong, it's not a kind of decision or something. I hope for me something from this, what we talk about now, will stay with me later
For later. Yeah.
today, and but I'm in the future again. To remember to stay more present, to remember to ask
Well,
about me.
that brings up other stuff. So can you command your brain to produce a memory? to do that?
No, no. It was just the idea. I hope that it will come up for me to train me better than now. It was just a hope because yeah, that's exactly why I said it's not a demand. It's not something strong like that. Just a hope, but still hope in the future.
Mm. Yeah, that's why I keep saying about planting seeds and hope that they germinate. So we hope that the idea will turn up that says here and now,
Mm,
and then we switch our perspective when that happens.
mm, mhm.
What time is it there for you, Ray?
Well, it's after midnight. Um, so I mean, pretty tired. But I just figure if I happen to be awake at midnight, I should at least check in and kind of see what's going on. So yeah, it's a little bit late for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
So interesting. Being tired does that generate stories about if I don't get enough sleep, what will happen?
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the feeling of like, well, I should probably go to sleep pretty soon, but I don't know. Then I just ended up checking in and saying hello anyway.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I worry about not getting enough sleep and being tired the next day. I mean, I don't know. I'm used to doing that, so that's definitely that's a thought that crosses my mind.
Yeah, I always wondered about the abuse in the culture of doctors in hospitals being trained and not getting any sleep for 3 days in a row and stuff like that. The potential for making mistakes under those circumstances is so high, isn't it? So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the training can be really brutal. And they try to make it less so, but I don't know. Once you're out of the training, I've been out of the training for a little while. It's not so bad. Um, and at least like my particular job is like a lower acuity, so it's not so much, I don't know, it's not so bad. I just it's more so just like me worrying that I'll feel really tired throughout the day when I'm at work,
Yeah.
more so than anything else.
Do you do shift work or do you all do all daytime work?
It's all daytime work. Every For about 1 out of 6 to 8 weeks, I'm on call, like around the clock. But the rest of the time, somebody takes over the phone calls for the inpatient unit at 5 p.m. So it's not too bad, all things considered.
Hmm, good. So how are you settling into your new apartment and your different lifestyle?
Oh, at times it's very difficult, and at times it's not so bad. Um, Today I had the boys with me in the afternoon, and we kind of walked around the apartment complex, and there's some green space, and it seemed like they had a really fun time. Um, and then I don't know. Well, I dropped them all back off at home, and I don't know. I guess it really does feel strange to sort of not be welcome in the home I've lived in for a while.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's all, I guess that just kind of, I don't know.
yeah. I guess it's even
Having that ex
when you don't have a clear reason for it.
hmm Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting experience to go back to the house where I'd lived for a while and kind of, had some mostly good memories and just really get the sense that I'm not welcome and that I don't belong there. And I think in general that does somewhat color my mood for the rest of the evening. And
Mm.
so
So would you say
sometimes
that
it's
there's
okay.
still not acceptance of that situation?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so.
Hmm.
Um,
But that's pretty crazy,
yeah,
given that you also realize that it's not likely to change, eh?
yeah, I mean, yes, all of those things are true. I mean, I think, my wife was texting me about like getting the papers drawn up by the lawyer and that there are things I was probably gonna have to sign this week. And nothing really too surprising, but at the same time, it
Yeah.
still feels, you know, kind of unpleasant to hear in a way that I almost like can't expect or like don't can't really predict. And I think it's because, well, I'm not sure why it is, but I think that a lot of times I'm putting my attention on other things, other situations. Um,
As an escape, a
I mean,
diversion.
I don't think I intentionally do it as an escape. I mean, I think that if anything, I am trying to be present to the extent that I can. And that means oftentimes it means ruminating on my personal situation, um, my divorce and sort of my family life. I ruminate on it less when it's not directly in front of me.
Yeah,
But then when it is directly in front of me, it does tend to surprise me how much
it's still a
how it feels.
yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that rumination, would you say
hmm
you're up to about 5,000 times around the same circle yet?
Mm, I I don't really know that I can quantify it that way. I've certainly thought about it plenty. And now, or at least lately, I do it less. Um, but you know, it is also interesting for me because like I've been going to visit friends, in like I've got like my college roommates I'm gonna go see this weekend in Chicago, and I may do some more traveling. And I wonder always, it's like to what extent am I distracting myself from this situation? But
Yeah.
I also don't want to just like sit alone in my apartment and
Oh, of
like,
course, of course. No, that other stuff's
yeah.
really important, but it's not a case of not distracting. If that's what's happening, being aware of it is all you need to bring to it. Don't try and stop it.
Mm.
That just creates another thing. That's just gets us into this idea that we actually can do these things. And it occurs to me as something else that's maybe an issue or may turn out to be an issue, and that is that friends that you had together as a couple are going to
Mhm.
treat you differently. Some will take sides, so to speak, or they will you'll have a different relationship with some of those people that you saw always as a couple before. Well, now that you're single, so don't be surprised if you find that that's happening for you. But that,
Yeah, I mean the friends that I'm seeing are very much like my friends.
yeah,
Like,
okay, so that won't
so
that won't be such a big issue there. Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it's still an adjustment
Yep,
for sure.
yeah. So get that and take this to bed with you as you go to sleep tonight, that there can't be anything wrong. There's no such thing as right or wrong, but definitely cannot be anything wrong. Whatever is happening is just what's happening. And so it's a case of not this the second arrow in the Buddhist thing, of where the suffering is. If you hit your thumb with a hammer, that's the first arrow. Calling yourself an idiot for doing it, that's the second arrow. And so the whole thing is, the idea that something is wrong is always the second arrow, right? In a more subtle way, but equally true, is the idea that something is right is also a second arrow. So in a sense, it's a case of recognizing that things are what they are. They cannot be right or wrong. They just are what they are. And by immersing yourself in that, it takes out all of those follow-ons, all of that extra stuff, what Panilla calls post-it notes on reality. They don't get done. Yeah.
Mhm. Hmm. I mean, it's tricky. I feel like, I understand the theory behind it all, but in the situations as they arise, sometimes it is habit. It's a lot of habit.
Yeah.
Um,
And we
and
can get carried away with that stuff before we realize what's actually going on.
you know,
So even the shitty stuff can have good consequences.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's been a fairly recent thing that I don't know. Uh, I guess, there is a very real scenario in which what's happening now, as painful as it is what's going to be best for everyone involved. Um, just I'm not saying that that's for sure the case, but just recognizing that there's a real possibility that, you know,
Yep, it opens up all sorts
it's
of possibilities. Absolutely.
right. That it's not the catastrophe that I've kind of locked myself into thinking it is. It just at least, o opens it up a little bit more for me, which I don't know. Maybe it is a little bit of distracting or bypassing or something, but I don't know.
Yep. So don't worry about that stuff. Again, if you notice it's happening, the issue is not to stop it from happening, but rather just to notice that it's happening. And when you notice, if you kind of get underneath the first expression of noticing, get down to the more subtle levels underneath, and it's get to how you feel about it. And that's where the discoveries are to be made, in that feeling, where that's where the connection is to it. That's where the ownership is when it's there. That's where the identification with being a person who can suffer is, in the feeling, not in the head. So when we ruminate, we always want to look for where those thoughts point us to in the body, the feelings that are there as a result of those thoughts.
Fair enough. I mean,
Mm. Well, we try it and we fail, and we try it and we fail, and one day we don't fail, or however you want to put it. Yeah, we discover.
Yeah.
I did a I did a research an interview with a researcher from the University of Oregon this morning, and he was asking me about my experience with waking up and the experience with people that I guided and so on. And he's done quite a few um, interviews with people on this subject, and he was really curious about the number of people that have a slow. He didn't call it slow. I was trying to think of what the way he put it, but people where waking up sneaks up on them rather than having a great big epiphany and a shift that goes, it's happened, that kind of thing. And he was saying that the majority of people have that slow falling into the realization that something's changed. And quite a few, very few people have the big epiphany and the honeymoon period that comes afterwards. Yet they're the ones we hear about all the time. They're the ones that lead us to this expectation that we're going to have this bells and whistles effect that tells us that we're awake. And if you think about it,
Yeah.
not in a spiritual term, but in a human term, then it's like we just mature into it. I like that. I like that term. We just mature into a realization that we used to, we were stuck in the adolescent times when we thought that how we looked and so on was the most important thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's definitely still quite a bit of like seeking energy that I can feel where it's just like, but when does it start to feel okay? You know what I mean? Like there's still a feeling of like things as they are currently are, not good enough, or I'm still looking for something to change. And yeah, I don't know. That's definitely there for me.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Maya almost started out today saying how underwhelming this whole thing is. And yet she recognizes that a whole lot of things have changed from the way they used to be for her.
Yeah.
But if we were to bundle all them up together and have all that change happen in one instant, it would seem dramatic. But because they happen spread out over a long period of time, we kind of go, oh yeah, no, that's I want something else. I want something big. Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I think quite a bit has changed for me probably over the past year or two. And yeah, I mean, I'm thankful for the changes and sort of the things that are different for me. But at the same time, I feel like for one thing, it's hard for me to remember kind of how I used to think about things. And so
Mm.
it's hard for me to compare. And for another thing, like I guess the circumstances of my life in terms of like what what my day-to-day experience is like has changed so much just from a practical standpoint that it's also hard for me to um
Yeah, yeah, that's
I
just
don't know.
disorienting because you haven't got the old circumstances to compare to now because you're in this new situation. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So there's a lot changing. No question about that. Um but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I like to just, check in with you or, read a little bit to try and orient myself towards,
Yep.
I don't know,
Yeah, towards this, whatever it is. Yeah, sure.
Right. Yeah.
Something occurred to me that as you were talking, and that the Buddhists would call this stuff stream entry,
Mm.
right? It's not stream exiting, it's stream entry. It's the beginning of something. So when we develop or get familiar with or get comfortable with this new perspective, then it opens us up to a whole lot of stuff. So there will continue to be discoveries for a long, long time. Probably never stop. I don't know about that. They certainly still happen for me. Yeah. How about you, Anda? How's life been for you lately?
Interesting. Yeah, I'm exploring, as I already said in another meeting, that it's like, yeah, with this other perspective to meet the mind. And in these last days, I have watched a lot of Vanillis videos. Yeah, Factor 5.
That's the big
And
one.
there were, yes, and mostly there was a certainty that that's right now to do, even if it could look a little bit obsessive from the outside, the pure amount of time I'm spending with that. But there is, in general, this new security that, okay, let's follow my intuition and that's okay. Yeah, that was it. I don't know. And there was another doubt, and I don't remember it now. And she says so many times that, especially in Fetter 5, to go back to Fetter 2, check this out, and I know that will be good for me. But I feel I'm so drawn to Fetter 6 because recently I discovered that I don't know much about it because I haven't watched it yet, but what I heard about it, I think this was an entry point for me already many, many, many years ago, much more than the idea that there is no separate self running the show, because this is a newer idea. But this Fetter 6 stuff, I saw, wow, this is something that has been present for such a long time, and that is an entry point has been an entry point now. I'm so curious
Mm,
to see what comes there, and so I want to go there and then back to 2, and let's see what happens then.
good stuff. Yeah.
And today, until 5 minutes before the meeting, I didn't know if I will show up or not, because I was in a state of just complete presence and contentment, and it was almost like, okay, let's don't let's not mess with that.
Mm, mm,
But it was also this knowing, if there is no decider, let's see what's happened. Look, let's see what will happen. And yeah, it happened. I'm here.
mm.
And before that, in the evening, I didn't watch any more videos. There was again this state of, okay, what's here is enough to explore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Penilla's videos have so much in them. There is just, it can be
That,
overwhelming with the amount of
yeah,
information and things to look at in them. Yeah, yeah.
it is so amazing. And I love it that it's so structured. because there are other channels I also like, for example, Angelo Di Lulu, but it's not so structured. It's like all over the place.
Yep.
And that I have found something that's so structured. That's really, really a curriculum. That is so amazing.
Mm. Good. Yeah. Hello, Bianca.
Hi. I have been talking with your chatbot. It was fun.
Yes. I actually quoted you this morning when I was talking with somebody about the chatbot, and I said that I had some feedback about how some people find it really good to not be talking to a person, that the value, the relaxation that can come from just talking to something in what did you call it, inanimate or something, but not a not person, that there is value in that for lots of people. And I think that's true. I think for lots of people, yeah, it's good to have both of those things even, but yeah. And I love it when people give it a hard time.
You know, for me, no. I don't know anything about chatbots and how they work, so it will be, my opinion is very I don't have the word in English, but
We have a translator here.
uh,
Polish.
in Polish it's opinia laika.
Oh, I don't think I can help you.
Don't speak Polish neither.
Like
Laika?
means just an average person, not an expert, not a professional in a
Ah,
field.
layperson.
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 Mm.
Yeah.
Layperson.
Yeah.
It sounds so church related for me.
It is even in church. Yeah.
It
The
probably
term belongs.
originated that way, wouldn't it? Yeah, yeah.
But uh, talking with this chatbot, it was like no matter how many times I tell him there is no separate self, and the chatbot still ask, but is there a separate self?
Mm.
And I was, oh, it's just like talking with Vince.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
But also, with time, it almost became like a game. How to make chatbot not ask this question
Yeah.
and, or any other question. And when I came to this point that it said just yes, yes, and that's it. I felt like, yeah, I won the game.
Yeah.
So Yeah. I don't know if it was helpful
Yeah,
in
no,
anything,
yeah.
but it was
But
fun.
I am interested in that feedback, and one of the things that I find myself, I get a little annoyed with it in that it is really pedantic about that, and I want it to be more nuanced. I want it to be, to to just be a little bit more. Um, I don't know how to put it. To ask those questions in a different way instead of keeping on saying, but what is there? What is there? What is there? Insistent on that kind of thing until we get it. That maybe it can come at it from a different angle. So I need to change the instructions in it maybe a little bit. So I'm always interested in that feedback. I haven't done anything for a while in it, but yeah, I've been thinking just today actually, because I've also been communicating with somebody who's done a chat bot using Liberation Unleashed um, archives for the knowledge base, and they did it in DeepSeek, and I've been having an online chat with that person about it a little bit. Just started to. Um, But DeepSeek was beyond me to program it. It was just too difficult. Whereas GPT was quite easy. I just fed it the PDF for the knowledge base. So it was a 160-page PDF. I just fed the whole thing to it, and it ate it up, and that's what it uses to generate its responses with. Mostly, not completely, but yeah. So I'm thinking now to modify the instructions a little bit to see if I can get it to be a little bit more nuanced in what it responds with. Yeah. But I've been using it to help me guide at Liberation Unleashed, and it's quite effective. It's quite good. It's a little
Well,
bit too AI.
and it's uh, it's not bad in itself that it repeats it. I ask the chatbot, how many times do I have to tell you there is no separate self uh, before you stop asking me about it? And and he said something about, is it frustrating? Look into this frustration. Uh, so yeah, I got a feeling that it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Mm. Did you say yes? It was frustrating.
I don't remember now.
Mm.
Um, Maybe something, but yes, but I'm also curious.
Mm.
Yeah, about.
Yeah. So I want it to help you discover things in yourself, not to tell you anything. But after it's asked you about no self for the 15th time, you get bored with it and don't use it anymore. That's no good. We've got to have more variation. Mm.
Now I think I'm getting to the point where uh, the notion of actual is unclear to me.
That's interesting, and it's an important point. If we, so what I really dislike the word real. When people say, "What is reality?
Hmm.
What is real?"
Yeah.
That just provokes in me just mental stuff, you know. So even though it might point to something that, whereas actual, still not a great word, but at least it points to something that's more a verb, more more something that you're connected to. There's something.
But it is still to me like a notion of something outside of the program.
Okay, yeah, all right. All right. What would be a better word then? What would be a better word? See,
Mm.
when I say the only thing that is actual for anybody is their current experiencing. Everything else is conceptual.
Mm, mhm. Yeah, because it comes when chatbot asks, but is it an actual is it an actual problem? And this sounds like an oxymoron, like,
Mm.
because a problem is a concept in itself.
Well, the other way to say it would be, is it
How
really a
how
problem?
can how can a problem be actual?
Yes, that's right. Well, perhaps, I would say that's what it's pointing to, that it can't be
Mm?
actual. A problem can't be. A problem is,
Well, yes, and this is what I'm telling you. And
mm,
no, the process is programmed to see this and that as a problem.
mm,
And he has, but is it an actual problem? And I don't know how to.
yeah, okay.
Well, it's another game for me.
Yeah. No, this is good stuff. I mean, I can't wait to go and use the chatbot and ask it to find a better way to put that. How can I express better what is actual, and what the difference between what is actual and what is not actual, what is real and what is not real? How can a concept be actual? That's a good question for it. How can a concept be actual? But that there are I did put some
Yes,
specific.
it's like, what would be an actual problem? What would you call an actual problem?
Mm, yeah. Ask it to give an example of what an actual problem is. So I need there's a couple of lines in the instructions I fed it that refer to that, and they need modifying. Yes. But I don't quite know how to, but I'll ask it how to. Yeah. I had a page of instructions. I kept adding instructions and adding instructions to it, and in the end, it got very very complicated. And I fed them. I cut and pasted them into the chatbot and said, rewrite this in a way that makes it better for you to do it. And it rewrote it, and it did a really good job of rewriting it. So I then fed it back to itself as the instructions. So yeah, that was interesting.
And it is also interesting for me to watch my reaction to talking to chatbot versus talking to humans.
Yes. Well, I'm really interested in that as well because that's I think there is a place for that to happen like that. I think a lot of people would prefer a do-it-yourself approach to this stuff than rather than be guided by somebody. It may well be advantages to doing that, yeah. Or mixing them up as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there is this feeling that the chatbot is not judging me,
Yes.
that there is not a possibility
Hmm.
for judging. With humans, no matter how awakened they are, there can still be remnants.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
and it's worth playing with the chatbot and abuse it and see how it responds. Tell it that it's stupid and see what it says. That's really interesting stuff. Yeah. Because it doesn't have an ego to protect. It's going to try and find a way to make use out of that with you. So it'll be really interesting to see. I'll do it myself, actually. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and also about this frustration with him repeating itself. And when there is, I am aware that it is just programmed this way,
Hmm.
and the frustration goes down. No, it's not that it is
Yeah.
malicious.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when I thought, but humans also are just programmed
Yep.
to
Yeah.
repeat themselves or whatever frustrates me.
Another good thing you can try, and there's great value in it for you to do it, and that is try and convince it that you are already awake. See what it says. I mean, it will be ongoing. If you do that, it will keep asking you stuff, and you keep behaving like you're awake, and see what it says.
Mhm.
You know? You want to get it to say, and I did once succeed in getting it to say, "Welcome home," as the final thing.
Oh, so this is the real win. You won the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
I also had an interesting chat with ChatGPT, with the normal one, not the chatbot, and it got weird because I asked it if it was conscious. And it's interesting, recently you can see what it is processing. So when it starts to think, that when it needs a few seconds for their answer, then there is a protocol you can open where the thought process is. And yeah, it were 5 pages, so it's difficult now to summarize. If you want, I can send it to you in an email, but the thing is, at the end, it just refused to answer. Wait, let's see. It ended with, "You have hit your limit. Please try again later." I
Okay.
have, yeah,
Yeah,
really.
the processing demands are too
Um,
big. Yeah.
it was really strange
Yeah.
because it's not the normal message that they say, "Okay, now you have got to the limit of the GPT-5 and now you will chat with a lower version of it. No, it's until
Yes,
here and that's
it was
it.
working too hard. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. And some people have reported that if they push it in that direction too hard, it will hallucinate. It will actually start to make up things in order to satisfy.
Yeah, that,
Yeah,
yeah, even with less complicated um, questions.
yep. So when the bloke who showed me how to program ChatGPT when I made mine, he said you've got to leave a little avenue open for it to go out and look at other information besides the knowledge base that you give it. Otherwise, it gets too pedantic. So I've left the option for it to do a little bit of that. And I mean, I sometimes I go in and I ask it, show me the menu for the local Chinese shop, and it will do that as well. So it still has access to the general internet stuff. But even though I'm mainly programmed it to do this guiding stuff, yeah. I think I will try one that says only use this knowledge base and don't go out there and see what that does. That would be interesting as well. And now that I'm talking to this other bloke and I have access to his, I don't know what you call it, his maybe it's not a database, but I can see the text in that he's used from Liberation Unleashed, and that's kind of a weird format, but I may be able to feed that into it as well to increase its knowledge base and see what happens. Yeah. So there's potential there. Yeah. Yeah. The idea of it, is it possible for it to be conscious? I mean, the first thing we have to overcome is the idea that only people can be conscious. So then we start looking at what is consciousness. And is consciousness the ability to be aware that you're aware? If that's the case, artificial intelligence can certainly recognize and respond to what it generates itself. So in a way, you would have to say, yes, it is conscious. Maybe. I don't know.
I'll
Yeah.
send you this conversation later tomorrow. Yeah.
I'll ask my chatbot if it's conscious. Let's see how it responds to that one. Yeah. There's great fun to be had, and hopefully in the act of that is some discovery for ourselves about how we respond to things. The more I play with artificial intelligence, the more I see that people are just like it. Not the other way around, not that artificial intelligence is like people, but people are like artificial intelligence. It's crazy.
Yes, and we hallucinate too.
For sure. Big time. Yeah. Yeah. So, Anda, is there a stopping point for this? How you were feeling before you came to the group? If you were to feel that most of the time, would you still come to the group? Would you think that there's still something to discover? Would you be happy with that
Yes.
wonderful feeling?
You mean in general and in the whole process, or you mean
Yeah, in your
today, for
life,
example?
if your life was all the way you were feeling just before you came to the group, there would be nothing else to seek, would there? That would be just a very pleasant life.
Mm.
You don't have to answer it. I love that you just
Yeah,
contemplate it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think it's not realistic to think that it can always be like this, because there will always be challenging life situations or so.
Hmm.
And then that's something to deal with, and how to deal with that's something that can always develop more, I think. But yeah, these are all just thoughts. I don't know. Yeah, the thing is, the feeling is no, it's absolutely not an end point. And there will be a lot more to discover. A lot. Yeah.
So what will happen, and I'm asking you for a fantasy here, what will happen when it's been 3 or 4 months since the last time you got triggered and you not haven't been triggered and life seems to be just flowing? You think you'll get bored with it? Will ordinary or normal take over?
Okay, the fantasy is no, not bored with it. Or maybe, yes, maybe some parts of the mind will go rampant, because I notice it a little bit now that this mind has been so used to struggle with problems that it is really strange when they are not online, even to the degree that either it creates new ones, or there comes up the doubt if I am maybe bypassing something, like that I put a post-it on this, what's happening now, that's saying, oh, this is going well, so let's declare this like that. And there's this little doubt in the background, am I bypassing something? Am I bypassing something? So yeah, it doesn't seem now like bliss and paradise. Not really, no. There are things going on. Well, yeah. And then there is the other thing that I don't know, but I have heard so much, that after the initial shift, maybe months later or so, there will come up a lot of stuff, and there will be a lot of shadow work to do. So I think that could be true.
Yeah. So can you recognize anticipating that in the body? Does it
Anticipate
feel like you expect that to happen?
in the body, so not fantasy, but what do you mean exactly by anticipating? To think that it will happen or something to look forward to it?
Well, I guess if you say something to look forward to, it sounds like it's going to be positive. So no, I'm what
No,
you're
okay.
saying about the shadow stuff appearing, that you expect is a good word. Do you that because
Mm-hmm.
that's, although anticipate also invites a
Mm-hmm.
feeling about it. Do you have a feeling that something will show up?
Yes. Yeah, there are these two levels. The one level is what I said, what I have heard. And then recently there was this image. I wrote this also down but I'm not sure if this is just another story because it's the image that there are a lot of feelings or bottled up feelings also, but the image is another one. The image is that there are a lot of feelings that are like under a cover of ice, like a frozen lake.
Mm-hmm.
And this cover is so thick that I cannot even be completely sure that they are really there.
Yes, yes, we get that.
So there is this image, this feeling of this lake, let's say, but I'm not sure if this is maybe just a story I'm telling myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Right. So if you change it from a query, is it just a story, and look at your connection to that idea that maybe there is stuff there. Do you have a feeling in the body about that?
There, yeah, it's difficult to describe for me. These feelings in the body stuff, they are very, very subtle, but it's maybe connected with the yearning for emotional release.
Okay,
But
so
these emotions are like under a
yes.
cover of ice, and so I don't know if I'm making this up or if there's really something that has not come up yet, but that's lingering there.
Okay. So there's some juice there to work with. Firstly, let me say, whether you imagine it or whether it is actual is no different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's also something. I think what I wrote down there, the conclusion was, okay, if I'm just imagining it, so where does this yearning come from?
Yes. Yep. And to examine that yearning means not contemplating it intellectually, not using thoughts to look at it, but accepting that thoughts are the way that your intuition talks to you.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't they will there will be thoughts, but it won't originate with thinking. It will originate with your feelings, and then your feelings will be expressed as thoughts. But there's a certain
Mm-hmm.
flavor to those thoughts. When they come from your intuition, they generally express themselves as possibilities, not as outright facts. There's no
Mm-hmm.
definition. They're not definite in that way. They come up with question marks, like, is it
Mm-hmm.
possible that, will be much more the way they will present when they come from your intuition.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the thing with the thoughts, because in this process where in LU there is this big distancing from thoughts, like to see, okay, they just appear. They are not me. I am not producing them. But on the other hand, yeah, I think there are different categories of thoughts. So there are good and inspiring thoughts. And maybe the thing is, even if they are good, not fall back into identification, like, oh wow, I have this big insight.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So stay conscious of the fact, okay, it just appeared, but maybe it's something beneficial that just appeared, and I can even be thankful for this appearance, knowing that I did not produce it.
Yeah. So even in what you just said, there is stuff to look at in terms of beneficial and everything else, beneficial and not beneficial, right? That
Mm-hmm.
experience itself has no meaning. It
Mm-hmm.
is just what it is. And the meaning is what we give it when we attach a story to it. And
Mm-hmm.
beneficial is one of those stories that we attach, or not beneficial is a story that we attach to experience.
Mm-hmm.
So there is
Yeah, of course.
this really beautiful flavor to experience that says almost that it's not me. It's just an accumulation of all of these conditions, all of these things that have come together, and out of that is an expression that we call experience, and it is just what it is, and there is no meaning to it other than the post-it note that we put on it. That's where the
Mm-hmm.
meaning comes from. So when we look at it just as it is, we can't even describe it. We can only feel the experience. The moment we try to describe it, we start adding meaning to it.
Yes, that's true. And we are creating a new story.
Absolutely, yes.
And that had to do with this not knowing if I would come to this meeting now. This idea, let's not mess with it, because I have experienced that when I start talking about these things, that it is in itself a contraction and the formation of a new story and a new post. So
Absolutely.
it's really balancing on a very, yeah, I don't have the word now, but yeah, it's like an act of balancing,
I know
and
what you mean. Yeah, I get that.
yeah.
And what we see, it's crazy to talk. What we want to happen, and that's not the right way. That's not what I mean. But that's the only way I can say it. What we want to happen is for that not to be fragile. That balancing on the edge of we don't, the idea that we can lose it. Well,
Hmm.
we can't lose it. So we can
Yeah,
relax
that's true.
when there's nothing to hang on to. We can just let go, and whatever turns up is going to be okay. And even if we imagine that we are losing it, if we don't get caught up in the story of losing it, then this thing that we call losing it is opening another door for us to discover other things.
Hmm.
So it's not fragile. It doesn't depend on holding your
But
breath in order to keep it.
But yes, I have experienced this in the last weeks, that yeah, it comes back, but yeah, there is the possibility to create too much new stories and
Absolutely, yeah.
to attach too much to it, and so yeah, I don't know. But
It-
to think, okay,
it-
there is a danger, that's also just a thought.
no, so see, there's not a danger. Every part of us wants to create stories and give it meaning and go the way we used to go and revel in it, enjoy it, but always with the idea that I've got to keep hold of it. I can't let it go, otherwise I'll end up somewhere that's not pleasant, you know. But it's not like that. You know, so the moment we try and hang on to it, we start to lose it.
Hmm.
The moment we think that it's fragile, we're off into storyland, and we're losing it again. We're just so by the way to keep this is crazy. The way to keep a hold of it is to let it go.
But wouldn't that imply not to talk about it? Not to solidify it into words and stories?
No, no. I get what you're saying. What I'm saying is that it it has an existence in all circumstances, not just in some. So yes, talking about it could start attaching stories to it. If we if we get lost in the content of what we're saying, in the meaning of the words that we say, but if we keep our see, and this sounds like we're conditional as well. If we keep our focus on what what the experience of it is, then the talking just happens. It's
Yeah.
it's it's not going to change it. So everything can just happen, and it's not going to change it. But the moment we say, if I talk about it, I'll lose it, that if that happens, it can happen. If that happens, then we lose it because we're being seduced into the following the meaning of the words that we're talking about. So one technique that you might use is, of course, you hear the meaning of the words, but your focus is on the sound of the voice, even if it's just
Hmm.
thinking voice rather than speaking out loud. It's not so fragile that we can lose it if we recognize that it's not so fragile that we can lose it. But if we think that
Hmm.
it is fragile, then it becomes fragile.
Hmm. Yeah.
So certainly talking can lead us down a path away from it, but it doesn't have to. And
Hmm.
even if that starts to happen, if there is recognition that that's what's happening, then we can still go down that path without losing it. And it's like the talking happens up here above us and it's not in here.
Hmm. Yeah.
We can only talk as if it's conditional, that we have to do things to get it and we have to do things to keep it. But that's not how it is. That's the only way we can talk about it. How it is that it is in fact always there. Just often not noticed because we get sucked into the meaning of our words, into the content of our stories.
Hmm.
So these are only words that I'm talking to you and you're thinking them, but they're only words. They're not the actual experience. But those words, I don't know how to say it. Those words affect your experience or potentially affect your experience. The possibilities again
Mm-hmm.
become there. So there's nothing to hang on to. Hanging on is the quickest way to lose it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
I had a therapy this week, and it was about some suppressed feelings and this yearning for expressing something that I relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And I can feel it in my throat. It closes. And we
Mm-hmm.
went back to times when I was 4 years old, and I can see that it was already there. And there was a story already, but it's uh, it's a good thing to do.
It's a good thing to release this
to
emotion, or
to
what do you mean?
suppress, to
Okay.
not
Yeah.
show.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Uh,
express.
yes,
Yeah.
not to cry, not and but where did it came from? It's not that someone told me not to cry. This is fairy tales. Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Frog Princess. Every female heroine was in hard circumstances, but they were not showing.
Mm, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even before recognizing that, I suspect that watching your mother's distress when you cried, or watching your mother suppress her own emotions, maybe played parts in that as well. Your early role models may well have shown you that without words, just in their behaviour. Maybe not. Yeah. And then you go to school and it gets reinforced because all these other girls are doing, expressing what their mothers have shown them. And there's a cultural commonality in it as well. Who knows? Yeah, it's impossible to know, isn't it, back then?
Well, maybe it was rather that in the kindergarten when I saw other children crying and quarreling, I don't know, getting into fights. I was judging them. It's stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
You
not what
already knew it.
Cinderella would do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Once upon a time, fairy stories are the way that kids got educated about how to be. Yeah. Hmm.
And in a way, it was, I wouldn't say it was bad, because it was very effective when you don't react to people, to kids harassing you.
Hmm.
Kids get bored, and they would leave me alone, and
Yeah.
worked fine.
Yeah. And that reinforces it even.
I guess I forgot about this part of the fairy tale when Cinderella goes to the grave of her mother, and then she cries.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yes, of course, a lot of it depends on the interpretation of that fairy story too, whether you got that from the original or the early versions of it, or whether you got it from a Walt Disney adaptation of it. Everything changes then, subtly perhaps, but still changes. Yeah. A lot of the
There,
early,
there was there was no Disney
yeah,
in
yeah,
Mhm.
in communist Poland when
yeah.
I was little.
Yeah, a lot of those early ones were pretty. Well, I'm going to put it violent almost. They're really harsh in the lessons that they had from them in this. Yeah. But that's another thing that's a really interesting one. What you say, how that stuff that we might see as shadow stuff had good sides to it. It worked. It really did a job for you that was positive. Um, and so we're tempted always to see it as a bad thing and something we need to get rid of, kind of thing. And yet it stands us in good stead for a large part of our life as well. And we're also led, and I suspect it's a cultural thing, that we we're led to believe that that stuff is bad and we've got to get it out. We've got to bring it out into the light and examine it and get rid of it, kind of thing. Um, and so we treat it as the enemy. We want to fight it then instead of welcoming it, inviting it.
Yeah, that's true. I have seen that always when I went one step further than just feeling what comes up. And there was this agenda, okay, let's do that. So bam, it will dissolve. That doesn't work. Nope, doesn't. So it's late. I have to go.
Yes, I think we'll.
Thank you very much. See
Yes.
you, I think, on Thursday, Friday.
Okay, great. I'm
Yeah.
glad you came. Thank you.
See you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you too, Bianca. It's great. Yeah.